Is that the truth? Are you actually telling the truth?
That's
Because you said in the
100%
last
the truth.
episode you lie frequently.
Welcome back to Sam and Jen Got Divorced. We are here with another episode for you today. It's going to be great. We're going to talk about, are you okay? And is your partner okay? Are you guys okay enough to get together? Okay? Okay? Okay. Let's jump right in. We have a special guest with us today. We are super excited to have Jeffrey with us. Whoop, whoop.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
All right, let's jump right in.
You're wearing a shirt that says Sam and Jen got divorced.
I am.
You're wearing
Plugs.
beads around your neck. You don't have the shirt. Why don't you have the shirt?
So as a result of the divorce, Genevieve no longer knows my size. So the shirt that she got for me is too small.
That's
Is that the
actually
truth? Are you actually
That's
telling the
the-
truth?
that's
Because you said in the
100% the
last
truth.
episode you lie frequently.
I said I used to lie frequently.
Less
now I only
frequently.
lie occasionally.
Now we less frequently.
Now I try to lie never. And if I do lie, it's a big deal. And I try to rectify it.
That's good.
So it was the truth.
Okay.
I didn't
So
get
that
the
is
And that's not a
Just
lie.
wrote the
That's the
t-shirt.
That's
truth.
true.
So it simply wouldn't fit.
Yes. It fits it on my body, but it's super tight. And it was uncomfortable.
Like a muscle shirt.
Uncomfortable for me and uncomfortable for the viewers. So
Okay, first question on topic. You got divorced,
yes.
but when you got married, you thought you were ready to get married and you anticipated being successful. Where did you go wrong in terms of, were you wrong in your self-assessment about whether you were ready to be married? Should there have been more premarital counseling, which is something I've seen lacking? Oh, we got 2 sessions, so we got premarital counseling, but it's like,
Oh, wow.
you didn't even talk about how many kids you want or whether you believe in birth control. What would you have done differently if you had to turn back the clock?
I love that question.
Let's jump in.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I wanted to be a healthy husband and a healthy man, and a lot of the behavior that I exhibited and decisions that I made, things that I did, were toxic and harmful. So based on that, I would say I wasn't ready. But did I think any of that was going to happen? Heck no. Hell no. Right? No. I thought, like, the majority of things that would make me a bad husband, I wasn't concerned about. I didn't think there were problems for me. I think that's probably the simplest way to put it. Like, did I think I was perfect? No. But I thought I was in a strong enough place that whatever happened after that in the marriage would just be learning and growing and the natural things that you'll expect when you're going to spend the rest of your life with somebody. So I grossly underestimated my readiness.
So how do you advise someone then? If there is a tendency toward self-deception in that area that you can't see beyond,
Yeah.
what advice do you give for someone who's anticipating marriage who may have certain struggles or things that they're keeping secret or whatever it is that happened?
This is maybe a controversial answer, but I think advice is mostly guesswork that anybody gives because no two people are the same. No two people come from the same context. I can't give advice that I know that will be effective. The most that I can do is share my experiences, what I've learned, what I've reflected on, what's worked for me since then. And hopefully it helps other people. But it may not. It may be harmful. It may be wrong, or it may be beneficial. I think combining my perspectives with things like data, things like other people's experiences, there are some things that I'm more sure about that have an increased likelihood of being helpful, and some things that are just my best guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, when we talk about looking back over time, it's so much easier to identify like the pitfalls and the places where we tripped and fell down. I like the way you phrased that because self-deception is a very real thing. We don't always admit to ourselves. We're not always at the place where we can admit to ourselves like where we actually are and sometimes how harmful our behaviors, our actions, our choices, our ways of thinking can be for our relationships. And so when we're doing the work of like assessing or evaluating, I think we have to be at a place where we're willing to be honest, or at least honest enough to know that we're not able to be honest. Like we're just not there yet. And sometimes we can be highly optimistic and just quite oblivious. And this is why emotional intelligence is such a big deal. We can be oblivious to how our actions and choices affect and impact other people. I've I've journeyed with clients, especially couples. It's like, well, I should be able to do whatever I want. And I've heard people say this, and I'm like, well, no, not really. Like, you can't just be able to do whatever you want and hurt the other person and expect them to accept that and continue to be the same person that they are. They're going to change each time you decide to do whatever you want. Yep. And then you're going to get mad because they're not the same person and they'll be doing whatever they want. And then what do we have? We have like chaos in relationship. So I think when it comes to especially evaluating like mental, emotional health, we need buffers. We need like good friends to tell us the truth. But we also need to lean into those resources. Like ask your friends, do you think I'm okay?
Yeah.
Like, do you think I'm ready? Like, do you think I'm ready to be in this committed long-term relationship? You've been rocking with me for 8 years. You've seen me in and out of 16 relationships. Do you think I'm ready? Maybe your friend might be able to tell you, sweetheart, you might want to work out some commitment issues. You might want to work out, some of your past trauma or whatever. You might want to work some stuff out before you decide that you're going to get married to this person, because I don't think you're quite there yet. I think we can use our resources. Like, be honest, ask your friends. Get some of this therapy stuff going on.
No matter how much we think we're ready to be married, it seems, however, that instead of making it a statement, maybe I'll ask a question. To what degree, then, is marriage an unknown?
Yes.
It seems like it may be when we usually think we have a set of expectations of what it will be, and we have a vision, and we think this is what it will be. But it seems like if there's things about ourselves that we don't know are there, there's certainly things about the other person, right?
That we don't know are there.
Because we're all putting on our best face until... Is marriage more of an unknown than people think?
Yeah, I would say yes.
Yes.
Always.
100%. Yeah.
Especially because
I agree with that statement.
Even if that person is exactly what you expected for the first year or for the first 10 years, they're going to grow.
Yes.
Their health is going to change. You're going to change, and how you change is going to affect how they change.
Yes.
So there's no way to know what you're getting into. That said, a lot of people's personalities is set within the first portion or quadrant of their life. So that it is valuable data to consider, but you don't know what you're getting into, really.
And I think there has to be a distinction between the marriage and the person. Like, your personal development is still going to happen, whether you're married or not. You're going to grow. You're going to learn. You're going to do things that you're passionate about. That's going to change you. You're going to like different things. Like, that's going to be a thing no matter what. I think in marriage, though, there are some basic components that you need to have. And you need to know that you have those before you get into a marriage. A marriage is a specific contract. It's a specific covenant. So when you're getting into a marriage and you're doing your vows, for example, like, the vows are there for a reason. It's just like a business contract. If you get into a business with somebody, a business partnership, and you say, hey, if we make this amount of profit, you get 30%, you get 29%, you get whatever percentage, and then you make the profit and one person takes 100%, well, the other two have grounds for filing some kind of, lawsuit. You've stolen the money because we've agreed beforehand, this is how we're going to divide it up. And that's the same with a marriage contract. Like, you have to have certain basic things in place for marriage. So here's an example. If you're like, yeah, I want to be out in these streets. Well, sweetheart, marriage is not for you. Because marriage means that you're committed to one person. Well, in our Western context, if you're in another context in, say, Nigeria or West Africa, wherever in the world, there's different guidelines and different parameters for marriage. But if you don't want to follow those parameters for that kind of marriage, then marriage is not for you. Like,
I mean, they have open marriages here too, right?
But that's what I'm saying. This is like, if we contract for this particular thing and you don't meet the basic requirements for that particular thing, then you don't qualify for that contract. Sorry. Go find something else to do.
Agreed.
Because when we're looking at definitions, we have to be on the same page.
I mean, that's
How are we defining marriage?
if we're gonna get into that. What I would say about that is, words can mean different things to different people.
Right.
To your
We have
point, we got to
operationalization.
define what does marriage mean to us. If somebody wants to use a word like it's English, like the words evolve over time. So
So let's go with this definition.
okay,
Based on the fact that we are heterosexual, male, female. That's the framework we're going to operate within for this conversation.
yeah, and that's the framework that we operated in when we got married
Right.
as well.
You mentioned previously you were engaging in toxic and harmful and hurtful behavior, and you've made allusion to that in previous comments. So just to come out with a straight up and honest question, it seems to me, based on some of the exchange, that this is 100% your fault, for lack of a better term. You're the one who brought the pain. You destroyed. I mean, she seems like the innocent party, and you were the one who caused this to happen. Is that the case? What did you do to make that come about? And how do you rectify that sort of thing? Does it involve letting someone go? How do you can you make up for that sort of thing? But it just seems like through the commentary, you're the reason we're sitting here. Is that true?
Yes. I can take 100% of the responsibility. When we look at expectations and promises, implicit and explicit, that were made, what both of us expected her to be getting was not what she got, right?
Wow.
So, yeah, I can take 100% of the responsibility there. That's not to say that she could have been perfect or she could have been made some mistakes, as humans do. Doesn't matter, because all I have is my side of the fence to tend, and I didn't tend it the way that we agreed on.
So how do you move forward then? What's the next step after that? What do you do? Do you let someone go find healing on their own? I mean, and I know every situation is unique. You guys are sitting here in this very unique situation, right?
I don't like, if you're asking me, I don't.
Yeah, honestly, I can't ask anyone else because every situation is unique. So yeah, for you specifically,
Well, because your answer might be different to that. I don't know how to give anybody else healing. All I can do is be as healthy as I can myself, and try to be honest with anybody else. So I think that has been my approach. The best thing I could have done for her is get healthier and become a better husband and a better human, better man, which was the journey that I started on when we were separated, and I've continued on since, with breaks and mistakes and months and years of not caring about getting healthier, all kinds of ups and downs in that journey. But now about 3 consecutive years of like focused healing work and growth work, which is ongoing. I think that's the best thing that somebody in my position, or that I could have offered, is get as healthy as possible myself, and be as honest as possible moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's fair. At the end of the day, you've done what's required in order for healing to happen for yourself. And I appreciate you taking the weight of responsibility and the brunt of the blame. The responsibility is yours to uphold your end of the bargain, so to speak. And so for that, take it. I think when we look at relationships in general, whenever 2 people or 3 people or how many ever people in a group get together, there's a dynamic that begins to play out. There are patterns that begin to happen that either exacerbate or diminish certain behavioral responses in others. And so we are involved in like a co-creation of relationship with others. And so when you say yes, okay, you can take your part of it. There are people who have walked through what we've walked through that are still married today. So are you the reason we are here today? Partially, yeah. Okay, 100% you didn't do what you were supposed to do. And then there's also my recognition of my role in deciding that because you didn't do what you were supposed to do,
fair enough.
Well, I'm not walking any further with you, and there's no room left for reconciliation or for repair within the context of the covenant. There is space for that. We didn't choose to do that. I take responsibility for how the relationship happened, based on what I contributed, right? And then, of course, based on decisions that I made afterwards. Right?
I appreciate
So,
that. I think that part of why I responded the way that I did is because I think that's a healthy relationship means both people taking 100% responsibility for their side of the fence. So I have to model that. And I'm not just modeling that for the purposes of this podcast. In every aspect of my life, I have to think that way. Like if I get into a conflict professionally, I have to think, what can I control? What can I have done better? And the same thing in any relationship.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
she said that she contributed action towards why we're here, but it ultimately wasn't anything that was, toxic or harmful or damaging. It wasn't negative action. It was, it was.
Like I can't.
for me, I would say it was protective action.
Sure.
Right? And that's because I was in a position to do that. Right? And I was like, wait, hold on. I'm going to preserve like myself in this because I didn't have a framework for how to preserve the marriage. And other people do. I didn't have it at the time. I've seen people walk
Do you have
through.
it now?
I have it now.
Really?
I mean, it's very different now. Like I'm a different person. I mean, we're a decade out, right? So it's very different. And hopefully I've grown. I hope I have it now. Maybe I don't have it now. I think this is a test of if I have it now.
Time will tell.
Time will
Just
tell.
like we didn't know how ready we were then.
Right.
Who knows where we are
Who
now?
knows?
Like, right? Like we're not the same place, that's for sure.
For sure.
But
For sure. But
very-
we really don't know. This
yeah.
could all crumble. It could all fall down. Like, we
Yeah.
don't know. We don't know. But no, we're hopeful in what we have learned and how we have grown. You can't really know until you're kind of in it. It's kind of like that marriage thing.
You seemed surprised or taken back when he said he 100% responsible for causing the divorce. Why?
I was actually surprised that you asked the question. I was like, oh, here we go. I like
I
it.
too was surprised.
and
It's like,
again, why would you be surprised if you know?
He's like, you know me though.
Because the only things that she may have potentially faltered in are those kind of normal things,
Yeah.
right? That are part of what you expect,
Team
like
Jen right
normal
now.
unknowns.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Causality is confusing though. Like we don't like there's
Is it?
there's a narrative that says everything I did was my fault. There's a narrative that says everything I did was the fault of the nature and nurture that I experienced. My genetic predispositions plus things that happened to me. There's a narrative that says that if she was a better wife, I wouldn't have acted out in the ways that I acted out. Right? All these are possible narratives. The one that I chose with and the one that I believe the most is what I said.
Yeah. And I think I hear that. There are, sort of different narratives. I think the one that includes everyone is probably the one that holds the most truth.
I don't understand yet what you mean.
So like when we're talking about, especially if we're talking about relationship dissolution or we're talking about relationship transition, we're looking at the people who are involved, who are present, those parties taking accountability and responsibility for what happens in the relationship or outside of the relationship. So meaning not outside as in other people, but meaning if they decide to leave the relationship, if they decide to part ways or to disconnect, to distance themselves or whatever. We're looking at those people who are involved as being responsible,
Right. Okay.
right? Do you understand what I mean?
Almost.
Almost. Okay.
Do you understand what she means?
yes.
Okay. Do you
But I'm
want
not going to explain it to you.
You figure it out on your own.
Yes.
Um,
Can I try to repeat it back and you tell
Go
me
for
if
it.
I get it? The best way of looking at it is looking at all the different people who are involved and giving them all, they can all share the responsibility.
exactly.
Okay.
That's good.
There was a reference made to wedding vows and the seriousness of them. And of course, the more we hear things, we can become accustomed to them, but they're pretty serious.
Yeah.
And it has the word sickness. And I find in our culture, there's this word creep where definitions are expanded. This happens with abuse. So there's all different definitions and types of abuse. And there's all different types and definitions. Maybe it's economic sickness, right? From a biblical perspective, most people think there are sort of allowances for divorce in cases of sexual infidelity. In our culture, that can often also fall under sickness if it's tied to an addiction. And so you have SA and these sorts of groups. So how do we think about that question of vows and sickness, marital preparation?
Yeah.
I don't know where you want to go with that, but if you
Yeah.
have any thoughts
I
on
like
any of that.
So if I'm understanding the question correctly, are you asking how we feel about the context of sickness, and if it includes marital infidelity, and
Yes,
whether or
'cause I
not
think
that's
there's-
grounds for divorce? Is that your question?
Now, I'm not of the school of thought that would extend it to that, but in light of the expansion of definitions, there's some who would say that, hey, if you say sickness and in health, and that includes every type of sickness imaginable,
Yeah.
including, we're always talking about mental health nowadays. Everyone has some sort of mental health issue, and there's this concept creep.
And I think that's a great point, because if you experience certain kinds of mood disorders or sort of thought disorders, mental and emotional health can significantly contribute to choices of behavior that are not aligned with, say, healthy relationship or marriage. So if you're experiencing, episodes of psychosis, or, outbursts of violence, or, overactive sexuality, and, things like that, we're talking about inhibitions. We're talking about thrill seeking. We're talking about like manic behavior, impulsivity. We're talking about a lot of different things that can make us behave in ways that just don't work in marriage. So if you're abusive or violent towards your partner, but you're having a psychotic episode because you didn't take your medication, yes, it is classified as sickness. But does your partner have a choice in that? Does your partner have a choice of whether they're going to stick around or leave because they don't want their face bashed in or their jaw knocked out? Like, you know what I mean? I feel like there's room to make some of those choices that do uphold like safety for that person.
Samuel, any thoughts on that?
It's tricky. I don't think I have a fully formed opinion on this. One argument says that the way that the definition of sickness is expanding is too permissive. Like we're calling things sickness that are maybe not sickness, and we're using it to justify. We say, oh, they're sick, so that's why they're doing this terrible thing. Maybe that's false, but also maybe it's true. Maybe we're just growing to understand more and more about what the nature of the certain sicknesses, right?
Yes, I have another comment. But go on.
You can jump in.
Well, yes, and I think we can make the distinction between like emotional sickness, spiritual sickness, mental sickness. Like there are different kinds of sicknesses. And so if we look at it in that regard, like a spiritual sickness is like, that's a real thing.
Right.
And if you have spiritual sickness, maybe you have, moral anorexia. You don't have those ideas about how to treat other people. Sociopathic sicknesses or whatever, right? You don't know how to treat others.
Right.
Or you don't care about how they feel. So,
and I think if you asked about marital infidelity and the biblical perspective, my thoughts right now are that all the other categories of sickness are not necessarily grounds for divorce, although they may be grounds for separation for safety purposes, to Genevieve's point, whereas marital infidelity, sickness that leads to marital infidelity, is under the category of you are qualified if we're talking biblically. That's my current take, which is continually evolving.
Just so as one question for Samuel, either to give advice.
Genevieve is here as well, by the way. But
Okay.
you on the hot seat? Feeling hot? You feeling hot? Can we get a fan? Can we get a fan on set?
How
I'm
polite!
very fancy next time.
How polite of you! I'm sure he always opens the door and that sort of thing. To give advice to others, or just philosophically for the sake of reflecting on your younger self. I mean, where essentially did you go wrong? See, that's why I'm asking him the question. Right?
I feel it.
yeah, where did I go wrong?
Our hope is that by sharing our mistakes and what we've learned from them, be supporting healthy conversations in our communities. So if you're enjoying listening to this, do us a quick favor, like, comment, and subscribe. It's not only encouraging, but it helps us in tangible ways. Catch you on the next episode, family.